Another thing, stop subsidizing members of your immediate family if they have the capability to work. Again, if they have all of their, if they have limbs, if they can get around in a wheelchair, they can probably go out there and get a job, unless they have a severe mental disorder. There is no reason to subsidize them. Absolutely none. If they can go out and get a job. Now, granted, if your parents are retired, they didn't save for retirement, and you don't want them to be a greeter at Walmart, fine, write your parents a check. That's fine. But if they can work, don't subsidize them. Hackers are suckers when it comes to money. You think I'm kidding, but honestly, the only people, there are two kinds of people that are worse than hackers when it comes to just giving money to people, and that's alcoholics and gambling addicts. Hackers are number 3. I don't know why that is, but it's true. Because I've done taxes for alcoholics and gambling addicts. And hackers. Hackers are number 3 on that list of people who do dumb things with their money. If you can't stop doing these things, if you know you're writing that check every week, and you know it's wrong, and you know you're being played, seek professional help. I can't believe I've said that so many times this presentation. All right, and just because I have to do this, if you missed it the first time, I am not a CPA, I'm not an attorney, I probably should have said I'm not a psychologist. A speech at a HackerCon is not a substitute for professional advice. Nothing except professional advice is a substitute for professional advice. All right, nobody from the con has asked me to go next door and start running the hacker karaoke thing yet, so I'm going to take questions. Seth.
Are you a CPA?
Okay. No, I'm not a CPA, and actually that's a very interesting question because I've applied to take the CPA exam twice, and I've been rejected on technicalities twice. My undergrad was in social science. The way back, black shirt in the way back of the room.
You didn't go into it at all, but what about hacker expenses that if they miss on itemizing on their taxes?
The question was, what about hacker items that they miss on itemizing expenses on your taxes? That's why you talk with a CPA. That's why you tell them everything that you're doing. If it's something that you do for your work or something that you do as a side project, if it's something that you do in the hopes of achieving some kind of financial return in the future, you can write it off as a business expense. If you're donating, and here's the other thing, if you're donating a lot of money to, the Hacker Foundation, you can write that off on your taxes. All right, where's the microphone? Okay, question right here. Make sure that the person who has the microphone in their hand comes by you if you want a question, because I'm just going to go on whoever has the microphone.
Actually, this is the last question.
Oh, is there a talk after
Great.
this?
No, actually, we could probably keep going.
Okay, yeah, they haven't asked me to go next. I'm supposed to go next door and do a game show, but nobody's pulled me in there yet, so.
Yeah, it will be in about dinner.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Is there a better way of establishing a good credit history without credit cards?
Yes, actually, thank you for bringing that up. Most banks will offer something that's called a credit builder loan. Basically what it is you go to a bank, say, I'm interested in building up some credit, I'd like to do a credit builder loan, which basically means they'll loan, quote unquote, you $1,000, but you can't touch that money. They'll put it in a CD that you can absolutely not touch until you've paid off that loan. And every month you pay that loan off, you might be paying 6 or 7% on the loan, and it might be invested in a 3% interest-bearing thing. So you're paying 3% interest, you're paying $30 over the course of a year to get better credit, which is probably a good deal. It's called a credit builder loan, and if you pay it every month, at the end of it, they give you the CD and all that money with interest. You don't have to use credit cards to get a good credit history.
They're not charging you interest on your money, are they?
They charge you a net interest rate because they're putting in an interest-bearing CD, and they're charging you probably twice or 3 times as much as what that CD is, which is what, but that's what I said. Right, well, no, you're not losing money because you're paying to get a better credit score.
Yeah, you're just paying the interest to get the credit. And then you take the loan money and you use that for a secured credit card, and then you
right.
go right.
That's actually another good thing, but usually it's called a secured credit card, which basically means that you're giving the bank like $500 to have a $500 limit on a credit card, and if you don't pay it, they take it. They take that whole thing out of it. If you're not paying it every month, you're not paying it on time. Those are generally bad deals. I'm not saying that there isn't a good secured credit card deal out there, but generally they're charging you monthly fees, which just eat away over time. Fees are where banks and lending institutions make their money. Every time they charge you a fee, it's usually a bad deal unless you bounced a check. And if you bounced a check, you're a moron. Okay, next question on the microphone over there. Yep.
Will your slides be up on your personal website or something?
The question,
Will your slides be viewable on any website?
yes, I will put them on NICFAR, NICKFARR.org, or I'll put them in some form of, they might not be PowerPoint slides because I think PowerPoint slides are a bad way of giving information to somebody who just wants to read it. I will put it in a wiki which will be linkable off of nickfar.org, which I know I haven't changed in 3 years. I will change it in 2 weeks. Okay. Yep.
You had mentioned that to cancel a credit card if they wouldn't like lower your interest rates or waive the fee or that sort of thing. I had heard that if you close a credit card account, that actually reduces your credit score because it's a net loss of how much money you can borrow.
That's negligible because anytime you cancel a credit card, like credit card companies will pull your credit report every 3 months or so. And if they see that you've closed a credit card, they'll say, oh, well, they paid off the balance. They had a responsible history with that card. Why did they close it? Maybe it's because the deal wasn't good enough. Let's offer them a better deal. Yes, it does have, if you're constantly going from credit card to credit card to credit card like that, it has a negligible negative effect on your credit score. But it's usually, I mean, this is something where you have to have had over, more than 10 credit cards, more than 10 credit cards and switched them all every year. It's such a negligible impact on your credit score that if you're paying all those balances responsibly and seeking a good deal, it lowers your credit score only because your credit history indicates that you're a smart consumer. And smart consumers are generally, they don't really want to offer less profitable, exactly. Smart consumers are less profitable, which is why it has a net negative impact on your credit score. But if you've been, now here's another thing. Let's say that you got laid off for 3 months, you didn't have the money, and you missed payments for 3 months on that card. And you eventually paid it off, balance transferred it, whatever. That will lower your credit score much, much more. Over the life of a credit card companies will usually let you get away with 1 missed payment a year. Anything more than that, that's when they start tacking on fees and they bump. Here's the thing. My fiance, are we off tape right now?
She's a wonderful person.
My fiance's best friend. Missed her credit card payment, just paid it late because she didn't realize when it was due twice in a row. Her interest rate went from 13.99% to 28.5%, which I believe is the statutory limit in the state of Michigan. That is an interest rate that is illegal in 10 out of the 50 states for missing her credit card payment twice. And they're doing that a lot more now because a lot more people are defaulting on their credit cards. Anytime there's any warning flag like that, they're going to try to get as much money out of you as possible before you go broke, before you declare bankruptcy. Oh, and here's another thing. People who declare bankruptcy, they say, why, I thought after I declared bankruptcy, I'd stop getting all these credit card offers, but now I'm getting 3 times as many credit card offers. Because after you sign an application for a credit card, after you've declared bankruptcy, they can go after you and anything you own for that, with certain statutory limits depending on what state you live in. By the way, if you're really bad at managing credit, go move to Massachusetts. I'm absolutely serious. I mean, because their credit card companies make almost no money in Massachusetts. Well, I'm sure they're making some money, but the laws there are so labyrinthian for them. And that's another funny thing is know what the laws regarding credit are in your state. Because there are many credit card companies are national institutions and are generally not really great at keeping track of what the laws are in 50 states, which is why they all get sued in a class action lawsuit 3 times a year, every year. Because they're counting on you to not notice the agreement or not know the law. If you don't know the law and you don't think you can know the law, if you don't know what everything absolutely means with certainty, and that applies to probably 99% of the people at this conference, which means there are probably 3 people here who understand it, go talk to a certified financial planner, bring your agreements, bring your credit card statements. Oh, and another thing I forgot to mention, save everything. Save all your receipts. There are many, many people out there, especially if you eat out a lot or do a lot of things for business like that, and then there's a tip line right there. Do you know how easy it is to make an 8 out of a 3 on a credit card receipt? And do you know how many people notice that? Do you know why Russian credit card hackers will not charge $100 on your account? They'll charge $5. It's because it's a random $5 charge to a name you don't recognize. Well, it's $5. I don't care about it. I'm not going to contest it. That's how they make their money. Always know exactly where it is. Save all your receipts. Know that the amount is exactly correct, because otherwise they will nickel and dime you to hell, and you're a sucker, and hackers are suckers. Okay, next question.
You mentioned that renting is bad, and I'm a renter and I don't like it. What are your suggestions about buying a house? What should you look out for?
Okay, buying a house is beyond the scope of what I can talk to you about because of granted, it's changing. In a lot of markets now, depending on where you live, and this is very dependent on where you live, it's changing. And actually, for as much as I hate paying rent, I hate paying rent because I live in a place where I can go buy a starter home for $50,000. The only problem is, now granted, there are places in New York where you can't buy literally, there are residences in New York where you can't buy a square foot for $50,000. And I'm talking about like a home that's not a trailer on a yard in a place where the gunshots are heard only 2 or 3 times a year for $50,000. I could go live in Cracksville, and and that's the funny thing. There are houses where I live that you can buy for $1, and they want you to buy that because the city will start charging you property taxes. You're legally obligated to fix it up, to mow the lawn, to repair the fences, to make it look like the house is not a crack house, which is why you can go out there and buy a house for $1. If you're really good at building stuff and you don't mind getting shot at, go out there and buy a house for $1, because you will make your money on the investment. But as far as buying houses and when it's time to move, let me put it to you this way. If you're making 150% of what the poverty line is in your town, now granted, what the poverty line is, what the federal poverty line is in New York, makes you the richest man in town in Kentucky. These are all things that are very dependent upon where you live. Talk to a certified financial planner. Talk to people who rent. Talk to people who own houses. Talk to professionals. Only then can you make an educated, informed decision on whether or not it's good to buy a house or rent. Now, here's the other thing. When you buy a house, you're still paying a large portion of rent to the mortgage company. And that's the other thing, is that sometimes buying a house, you can lose a lot of money on. And actually, the New York Times, in their most recent article discussing this point, said, in most major metropolitan areas these days, it's usually better to rent because you're going to end up paying the man less. So that's something that really depends on what your area is. They used to be able to say that buying a house is always a good investment, but the mortgage market, the real estate market, all of that is so beeped up right now. Don't do it. Next question. Oh, Alonka. Oh, no, I'm in trouble.
No, I don't know if you've seen it yet, but there's a documentary in the theaters right now called Maxed Out.
Yes,
I recommend to everyone
yes,
in this room. And
yes.
it goes into what you were talking about with the corporate conspiracies. And it actually shows that the credit card companies are targeting college students, and they're targeting people who are going to hold balances for the rest of their lives because it's a huge profit center.
Yeah, and that's the funny thing, is that college students usually grow out of it. Hackers don't. And that's the funny thing is that I often, and that's another funny thing, is that I've helped my friends with taxes for years. Before I decided to pursue CPA and go through this, and I've helped them with it. And I've noticed that when hackers get married, usually whoever they marry takes over the finances and they start cleaning up. And I think I'm about to get cut off because